Hello, this is Bartek from Road Racing. It is truly a great pleasure for me to present to you the very latest model from the Italian brand Wilier the Filante SLR ID2, which is their newest generation racing bike. What kind of bike is it, you ask? You'll find out in just a moment in this very video. But for now, I'll hand it over to my cyclist so he doesn't completely freeze out here. Just a quick note, we are near Calvaria Mountain, and we get the impression it is a bit bigger than the one at Gassi, but you can be the judge of that. All right, Witek, how was the ride? I don't want you to freeze out here.
Yeah, it's windy today. It's been 2 weeks since my last race of the season, but I had the chance to ride really fast again today. The bike performed brilliantly in my estimation. It's the newest Wilier model. In another video a couple of months ago, we were also on a Filante SLR. Today, it's a slightly different bike and what...
This is Filante SLR ID2, the next version of it.
A higher...
No, another.
The latest model.
Right.
The first thing I noticed was the cockpit. The lines of this cockpit are really interesting. And here there's this black, not a gasket.
A fairing.
A fairing. The water bottles are quite unique. From photos, I generally prefer it without them, but they can be easily removed. But as for the ride itself, at high speeds, incredible. We were talking about this earlier. Apparently at 50 kilometers per hour, the bike has 19 watts less aerodynamic drag, and you could really feel it compared to the last production.
Witek pushed it to 65 kilometers per hour today.
Yes, on a flat section with a slight tailwind, so I really wanted to get reliable tests done. We also took it on a loop that included a really steep hill, and having tested several other bikes on this channel, I can confidently say that this one, even though it's a size S51, was genuinely the most comfortable for me to ride. The position, despite my height of 180 and the stem not being too long, was really fantastic. Something else that caught my attention were the very quiet wheels. I thought the brake disc was rubbing, but it's an unusual sound from the hubs. However,
they're power-based wheels, super quiet.
Regarding the ride itself, it was absolutely excellent. The frame bends are very interesting. I have a Trek Madone from 3 years ago, and these new bikes, the new models, it seems to me they are designed with completely different lines. It's incredibly sleek and narrow here. The geometry nowadays is entirely different, but it genuinely handles excellently, and I'm very satisfied with the test ride.
Okay, thank you very much, Witek. I won't keep you here longer so you don't freeze. Thank you. Okay, so now for my portion of this comparison. The bike arrived, just so you know a bit of the backstory right at the last minute. On that note, I wanted to take this opportunity to sincerely thank Wilier and Marcin from the Road-Racing.pl store, without whom this bike wouldn't have arrived for testing on schedule, enabling us to deliver this content for you today on its global premiere. Also check our channel partners' offers, Road-Racing.pl store, Ocular Opticians, and Evan Light. Discounts and details. The offers from our channel partners are in the video description, right where they always are, down below the video. And remember to comment, subscribe, and also boost this video, because that new YouTube feature really works. And let's get to the review of the bike itself. I have to say there's a lot going on with the technical aspects of this bike. Wilier truly set a very ambitious goal for themselves. While keeping the exact same frame weight that we know from the Filante, SLR1, the first edition, is about 880 grams, plus or minus 5%. They truly decided to fully confront the topic of aerodynamics. And now, fully committing to the topic of aerodynamics can lead to very diverse outcomes. It could easily end up as a bike that just looks rather odd. So the tube profiles are quite massive, and the bike carries a significant weight. But I really feel Wilier managed to achieve a very sleek and well-proportioned bicycle design. However, every detail on this bike has been reworked and redesigned. In my opinion, this bike has nothing in common with the previous Filante, apart from the name. Let's start with the fork. The fork has wide clearance from the wheel. This represents the new trend. The left side of the fork was specifically designed in a particular way to subtly conceal the brake caliper and its component. And this particular side was clearly designed differently than the right side. The fork crown has been entirely reworked and, of course, designed with aerodynamics in mind. From this angle, you can really see how perfectly it's all fitted. Truly, the fork crown is perfectly fitted and aligns well with the with the head tube. It really does look super aesthetic, and that clearance is truly the absolute minimum possible while still allowing the fork to turn, so to speak. And of course, we have camtail profiles and NACA profiles here, specifically on the down tube, along with the entire history surrounding the integrated bottle system's design. It was done in a manner that had already been put into practice. This isn't a pioneering approach. BMC had implemented a similar solution some time ago. These fairings, as you can see, were designed to be like spoilers, with the aero bottle sitting directly on them. A round bottle also fits here. There's no problem with that. This subtly enhances the bike's aerodynamics, adding an extra 2 to 3 watts depending on the speed at which you're riding. However, if the aesthetic of this solution isn't to someone's liking, they can simply remove these plastic fairings. These components, these supports for both cages, and then install even a classic bottle cage. You can install any one you prefer, whichever pleases you most. Since I had this bike at home for some time, I went ahead and did something rather characteristic of me. I actually unscrewed this support bracket and weighed it myself. This exact component weighs precisely 48 grams. After taking both off, I anticipate some weight savings of about 90 grams, since I wanted to figure out if the previous Filante and this current model truly weigh approximately the same, similar weight. They will, because the wheels are a bit different here too. Nevertheless, a few more details about this bottle system. You're also able to use regular round bottles, 550 milliliters on this tube, and even a larger bottle on this same tube, all while fully preserving the system's aerodynamic properties, along with those extra aerodynamic gains that this setup ultimately guarantees. Yes, what I can tell you is that at 40 kilometers per hour, even without a cyclist, the bike itself actually generates around 9 watts of aerodynamic gain when compared to the previous Filante model. That would mean this bike, just estimating, since we don't know for sure. Well, we do know the viewers of the Road Racing channel here are up to date with the tech. Partly thanks to me, but you yourselves are keenly interested in this, and you know that Tour magazine conducts such independent aerodynamics tests. This would approximately indicate that the result in the Tour test would be around 204 watts, which in turn means this bike is faster than many modern designs, such as the Factor Ostrovam or the Trek Madone SLR or the Specialized Tarmac SL8. And at the same time, this bike isn't a heavy aero machine like, for example, I don't know, a Cervelo S5. So, there are various ways to approach the topic of aerodynamics. It's possible to craft bikes that are extensively modified, even featuring somewhat unconventional and elaborate cockpit shapes. And that, of course, also yields excellent results. Nevertheless, Wilier succeeded in preserving a relatively classic aesthetic for this bicycle, alongside a very well-proportioned frame that I'm confident will be broadly appealing. What's also quite important is that this bike will likely be available in an SL version, which is a more affordable option, perhaps a bit heavier, with a slightly different carbon layup. But judging by Wilier's past experience and what previous models have taught us, this will be a bike that possesses precisely the same aerodynamics, and here it really works. The seat tubes have also been redesigned. Here, meticulously testing everything on the Silverstone track, among other places they examined, they also extensively studied the relationship between the tube's shape while in use, specifically during pedaling on the bike. So with a cyclist on the bike, the engineers ultimately came to the conclusion that precisely this shape would be the one offering the optimal airflow and the absolute minimum aerodynamic drag. There's also an interesting story about the handlebars. They tested these handlebars using titanium designs. Roughly 8 prototypes were made, and the primary goal was to achieve the ideal shape, ensuring both comfort and the best possible aerodynamics for this lower grip of the handlebars. It was determined that these would be the ideal handlebars. I've ridden this bike and the upper grip is quite comfy. That truly matters, you know? And the Miche company also meticulously designed a really cool, perfectly flush Garmin mount, which honestly looks absolutely top-notch. That's a distinctive characteristic of Wilier. I would really say it's a tastefully designed bike. I really like everything about it, though personally regarding these water bottles, if I had such a bike, and it's not out of the question that I'd get rid of these plastic elements and opt for classic cages. I can give up 2 watts. The aerodynamic benefits are already huge. This bike, at least as Wilier assures, and from today's tests, by eye. Obviously, we weren't riding in a wind tunnel just outdoors. WeTech right here on the flat literally got this bike up to 65 kilometers per hour. And this bike truly picks up speed with impressive acceleration. The drivetrain on this model is the SRAM Red 12-speed. Well, I personally rode a Trapmadone SLR with this exact drivetrain group for an entire season. It's a really well-functioning group set. Today, the top-tier drivetrain groups from Shimano, SRAM, and Campagnolo are all extremely refined products. I've gained extensive experience working with both Shimano and SRAM. All of it really performs exceptionally well. The levers are naturally a full centimeter longer. I've mentioned this often, but I personally selected this particular bike, ensuring that with its stem length and the reach it offers, it's the absolutely perfect fit for me. However, if this bike were for me, I would need a slightly higher stack. And here I'd like to move on to the geometry because that's also changed a bit. In my size, Wilier took a very sensible approach, choosing a practical direction. This is truly a very clever move. Much like other significant overseas manufacturers, they've subtly shortened the bike's reach and marginally elevated the stack. And by shortening the reach a bit, I mean by about 6 millimeters. So it's not nothing, it's something you can feel on the bike. Thanks to that, it's much easier to get comfortable on this bike and much easier to find the right position. It really makes a difference. The reason WeTech said he felt so good riding it is also partly because the seat tube here is cut. I have a feeling that this bike, well, it is a bike that was specifically used for marketing purposes within Wilier itself, for presentations, and to make it look nice, the seat tube was carefully trimmed a bit. We have a couple of small spacers here, 2 in total, and it looks absolutely superb aesthetically. Of course, the aesthetics of this bike are still a matter of judgment, so please let me know your thoughts on it in the comments. How do the tan wall tires present themselves? These are great tires from Vittoria. They're the Vittoria Corsa Pro in size 30C. They feel fantastic to ride. I was riding here at 5 bars, but let me know what you think. This whole tan wall thing, do you think it looks better on a lighter bike or a dark one? I'll be honest, that's just how I am. I really like to check things out myself. It's not that I lack imagination, but I put wheels with black tires on it. In my opinion, it looked a bit better, but I'm interested in your opinion. Let's move on to the wheels. This Wilier is equipped with Italian wheels, specifically from the Misha company. There are a few interesting facts about these wheels. It's worth mentioning. I'll just double check one of them to see if it's really true. That's actually the case. So the interesting fact is that the spokes on the front wheel have a different cross section than the ones on the rear wheel. This is a concept known from other brands. For instance, DT Swiss uses a different spoke on the drive side. The essence of this is that we need better aerodynamics on the front wheel. Other brands have noticed this too. Slightly less is needed in the rear, yet strong tension is required. These wheels are super stiff. Truly, when it comes to stiffness, they're top tier. And here we have ceramic bearings. They are not Serra. They are not full ceramic speed bearings. These bearings were specifically developed in collaboration with Ceramic Speed. This specific hub variant allows for easy play adjustment, a feature we have here. Not everyone is fond of that. I rode it with Campagnolo and it didn't bother me. I understood how it worked and I was able to use it effectively. It features a super quiet free hub, which for current standards feels a bit too quiet to me, but perhaps it just has a little too much grease. Maybe it'll break in. It's a classic Paul free hub. I have to be honest, these aren't super lightweight wheels for today's standards. These wheels weigh about 1530 to 1540 grams, with a 50mm rim profile, 21mm internally, and around 30mm externally. And well, the weight is just what we have here, it's the weight it is. However, you absolutely won't notice that on the road. These wheels are exceptionally stiff, they roll remarkably well, and they also feature a slightly raised, subtly aerodynamic cover for the spokes, which contributes to their overall performance. Yes, on this side, on the side of the disc brake to be exact, it actually looks pretty cool. There are 24 spokes in the front wheel and 24 in the rear wheel. Thus, this also guarantees we have adequate stiffness. Additionally, the decals are applied very aesthetically, which do not create that kind of step effect or any visual unevenness on the decal itself. It truly all looks fantastic. Also at 50mm and with such a classically profiled rim, the wheels perform exceptionally well in a crosswind. I rode this bike just last Saturday, And it happened to be quite windy around here at that time, so I also had the opportunity to really put that to the test. And regarding the seat post adjustment, the actual seat post adjustment itself is highly reliable. This is a solution that Wilier had already implemented in its previous model, and truly everything about it functions flawlessly. It's a similar situation here. This entire shape component has a characteristic that makes it a little more difficult to insert into the tube, especially when you are assembling this particular bike. There are no problems with that here. As for the headset bearings, they are dedicated, manufactured for Wilier. Super lightweight. The upper bearing appears to be crafted, at least its housing, from a composite material. Thanks to that, it weighs very little. It has an attractive weight. A rather appealing and notably stylish element of this bike is the Misha mount designed specifically for Garmin devices, which is expertly integrated into its overall design. In summary, I really like this bike. This is precisely how I envision modern race bikes. Not those super heavy constructions that you'd later have to send to a race unpainted, just to maintain a reasonable weight and somehow hold it all together. There's no such need with this bike, even though these wheels are indeed heavier. And the additional 100 grams in these bottle cage housings, plus the bottle cages themselves, are also not what you'd call super light. This bike without pedals weighs 7,350 grams. As I calculated, if I were to bring it to the same condition as my previous Filante, we would get down to approximately 7 kilograms, which is an absolutely fantastic weight for a bicycle that clearly promises to be exceedingly fast. And with that concluding summary, I'll bring this review to a close. Thank you all very much. Thanks again to Wilier and the Road-Racing.pl shop for providing this bike for testing and for this presentation. I'll see you in the next videos and content from Road-Racing.pl.